All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I was having technical issues, so hopefully the sound's not being crazy. Hi, Corn. Hi, Meatball. Hi, Mr. Crow. And hi, Seashore Mary. And Gina G. Hello. And hi, Tawny C. It's so nice to see you. Hi, Desert Rain. Hi, Eric G. And okay, I think I'm caught up. That's awesome. Hey, Don Lambert. It's like so interesting how I see different people, like depending on what time I stream. I'm glad you guys are here. Hi, Anna. All right, so I am going to run my latest schizo clip because I do think that it is relevant. We are going to get through as much as I can today in regards to some things that I have talked about on Twitter, some things I haven't necessarily. And I hope that everybody is ready to put on their straight up noited goggles, okay? Because we're going to get a little weird as far as Aquino, his mom, his satanic priestess Mormon wife that preceded Lilith. So let's just go ahead and run it. I'm not gonna lie, I love that clip and I'm quite proud of it. But don't forget, we are out here fighting demons, y'all. And yes, when is it not weird, right? It's always weird. I know. But we're getting weirder. We're getting a lot weirder. Now I part of this, I am gonna give a shout out, and I don't think that they watch my show, but I've mentioned them before, Subliminal Jihad. So it is a podcast. I would highly recommend it to anybody who wants to get even more noited than they might already be. So, I showed you guys last time the young lieutenant colonel with his little bat eyebrows, right? So, I don't think that I discussed his first wife at all, quite frankly. And I certainly did not discuss her second husband. So, what we're going to discuss first is we're going to do just a brief refresher of his mother. We're going to talk about her father because I want to lay out the theory to you guys, and it is just a theory. But in regards to Lewis Terman, because we're going to be reading something, because some people don't know who Lewis Terman is. But in regards to maybe Michael Aquino being the homunculus moonchild, it also seems that there's something weird with his first wife, Janet Forbes, the member of the LDS Church. His second or his first wife, I'm sorry, in relation to her parents' age and when she was born. There just seems to be something really weird with Lewis Terman's Gifted Kids program. And I know it's going to sound really crazy. However, I am going to posit the theory. I talked with Virginia about this last night because I'm going to show you guys this really crazy article. Was Lewis Terman involved in essentially a eugenics program that was joining certain people to try and create child geniuses? Because I think that there's a very strong argument for it. Because I'm going to show you all the weird stuff about Michael Aquino's father, because he doesn't really exist. The dude does not exist. Like, we have a name and that's it. But let me go ahead and pull up this stuff about the grandfather, Dr. Campbell Ford, because you guys need to see this. So in regards to Dr. Campbell Ford, I don't have a picture of him. I'm not going to read the entire paper, but subliminal jihad posits the theory of like intergenerational Satanism in relation to this, and I think that it's super valid. You're going to see why, because Dr. Campbell got arrested for well, kidnapping a baby. So let's take a peek. All right, I tried to make these as big as I can. There we go. All right, so this is November 1st, 1894. Wanted to leave the baby. Dr. Campbell Ford tried to dispose of a newborn infant on Rincon Hill and is arrested. Says he attended the mother. His story of the age of the infant contradicted by the surgeon at the receiving hospital. I'm not going to sit here and read all of this. However, this is really insane. I think it's interesting when we consider, in particular, that, in Michael Aquino's own way, he would be involved in something very similar. And Dr. Ford was placed under arrest. He was taken to the city prison where he was charged with attempting to abandon a minor child. The infant was placed in the care of the matron at the receiving hospital. It is a large, healthy-looking child with black hair and a decidedly Italian cast of countenance. So over here, we have a follow-up. Dr. Ford's case. And it says that the particulars were given. The trial was fixed for tomorrow. The doctor was released on $200 cash bail put up by a friend. Gene Ginswich, proprietor of the restaurant corner of Clay and Stockton Streets, who the doctor thought was the father of the child because he had paid him $17, denied yesterday that he knew anything about the baby, the mother, or the alleged payment. And right here, let me see if I can make this any bigger. The charge of attempting to desert a minor child made some time ago against Dr. Campbell Ford was dismissed by Police Judge Conlin yesterday for want of prosecution. So there you go. Nothing happened. I just think that it's weird. It could be neither here nor there. However, if you don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and like pull up what the Ford stitch is, but this is the guy that created the Ford stitch. He's very famous in medicine. He's very famous in surgery. Hi, France Marks. Hi, Spookfish Spooky. Hello. And hi, Corey Anderson. And hi, Ivermectin Ola. I'm sorry I didn't see you guys there. So he was kind of a trailblazer, I guess. The Ford stitch, they still use it. I don't work in the OR because it's freezing cold in there and I feel like I would die, but this guy's legacy still goes today. So right here, apparently he took his life. I do not believe that he took his life. I don't believe it at all because it's just really crazy to me. So let's go right here. So, retired coast doctor found dead in bathroom. Dr. Campbell Ford, 70, retired physician, was found dead with his throat slashed in the bathroom of his home here today, and police said he had apparently killed himself with his razor. They said there was a possibility the fatal wound may have been accidentally inflicted while Dr. Ford was shaving. Okay. I don't believe that whatsoever. This guy is like a groundbreaking surgeon. And you're telling me that he was shaving in his bathtub and he accidentally slit his throat. Yeah? I don't buy that. I think that that's completely freaking nuts. And for anybody who is familiar with like weird societies, the Mount Moriah Lodge and the Golden Gate Commandery, don't know what they are. I haven't gotten to that point yet. However, so he stole a baby, tried to steal a baby, tried to get rid of a baby, technically. And then apparently slits his own throat in a bathtub. Do we see the parallels with the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino? Says that he shot himself, right? The death certificate says that he shot himself. I see a couple parallels, but maybe they're irrelevant. Now, in regards to his mother, we've discussed her briefly, and I'm not going to sit here and read all of this crap. Okay, she's a child prodigy. Woo, she's super smart. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is the stuff about Lewis Terman in particular, and her very clear ties to the LDS Church, because there's some very serious ties here. But I'm going to show you guys, that way you can determine for yourself, because what it appears to be is that Michael Aquino's mother was a rat line, like a rat line, a Nazi rat line into the LDS Church way back when. Hi, Leash, and hello, Carl Hassel, and who else did I miss? Hi, Sure Shot Sav, hello. All right, so I'm going to show you guys this. We're not going to read through all of them. Some of them you may have seen, but just so you guys can see how they, wrote about them. Wonder Child of 10. She's read 1,400 books. I know that we've gone over this before because it always made me laugh. 1,400 books. And there's Lewis Terman. Wonder Child. Oh, hi, Amy Cheapo. Hello. Sorry, I missed you. Hello. Fresco Girl Prodigy is college graduate at 17. Of course, she graduates from Stanford, right? Infant Prodigy. 1,400 books. Master's violin and piano. Look at that. She's a poet, a dancer, and a swimmer. Okay. What a girl boss. She's a regular girl. School paper edited by poetess, age 12. Who began writing at 3, destined to become literary light of the future. That's a bold claim. That's a real bold claim. But let's continue. All right, so here we go. Same thing, right? Frisco Girl Prodigy, college grad at 17, woo-woo, Stanford University graduate, only 17 years old. At 10, Betty Ford has greater mental ability than college freshmen. Okay, now, right down here. So Professor Lewis Terman, who's conducting a $20,000 investigation of child prodigy psychology for the Commonwealth Fund of New York, found, and I'm so happy that they put it in quotation marks, found Betty. How did he find her? Well, that is to be determined. Now, let me see if I need to go ahead and pull up. All right, yeah, let me go ahead and pull up this stuff about Lewis Terman first before we read this puff piece, because it is a puff piece, quite frankly, in regards to what he was doing. Because obviously, they're not going to sit there and tell you that this guy is a Nazi. And I get that the term Nazi is overused, but like eugenicist, whatever you want to call it. Okay, because that's what he was doing, because that's what this is. Like IQ test, gifted kids. And I'm not saying anybody that was selected to be in a gifted kids program is a eugenicist. I'm not saying that. However, the creation of these programs is based on eugenics. It is what it is. You don't like it, it's not my problem. Jeffrey Epstein was a gifted kid too. Okay, so here we go. This is the Stanford Daily. Eugenics on the Farm. Lewis Terman. There we go. And he created the Stanford Binet IQ test, a development which has made him and Stanford well known throughout the U.S. Terman's interest in intelligence, however, was not. It was motivated and shaped by Terman's deep belief in eugenics. Surpassed by perhaps only David Starr Jordan, Terman was the most influential Stanford eugenicist. He was a firm believer in attempts to improve the human race through selective and restrictive breeding. He joined and served as a high-ranking member in many eugenic organizations, including the Human Betterment Foundation, the American Eugenics Society, and the Eugenics Research Association, and worked alongside many others, such as the American Institute of Family Relations and the California Bureau of Juvenile Research. Sounds like that would be right up Jolly West alley. Terman was a central figure in the expanding network of American eugenicists in the early 20th century, a fact which can be clearly seen in his research interest. Now, I'm not going to sit here and read this whole thing. I will add this to the description in the stream afterwards, but that's just so that people have an idea of what they're doing. Because again, this is presenting you something that looks one way or the other. I want to know why Betty Ford was picked. I really do. I'm having a hard time getting too far back, but there's something here. There's something generational, there's something sort of familial, what have you. But now I'm going to show you guys a newspaper that I found. I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing because I think it's going to be really hard to read. But this is where, in my mind, when I was reading this is from April 1948, the Atlanta Constitution, where he talks about some of the failures of this program. And this is what makes this sound like it turned into a selective breeding program. And I'm just being honest. And I understand 1948, Michael Aquino was born in 1946. But if he already had failures, there's a strong argument that they were already doing this. Because remember, they don't let the public know until much later after the fact, right? They don't tell people until after the fact because in their mind, they have no obligation to. So here we go. What becomes of gifted children? Obviously, the photos are very propaganda-y, I guess you could say, whatever. Anyways, so let me see if I can get in here. All right, so there we go. So here are some of his successes. Professor Norris Bradbury, Stanford physicist who succeeded Robert Oppenheimer as director of the Los Alamos National Laboratory of the Atomic Energy Commission. Okay. And then we have Douglas McGlashan Kelly, chief of psychiatric therapy for America's armed forces in Western Europe during the war. That's not good. He made the official psychiatric and psychological examinations of Marshal Goring and other highest Nazis in prison. Imagine that. And this last one, Dr. Ansel Keys, I'm going to do a deep dive on him, a 44-year-old physiologist and medical scientist of the University of Minnesota and the Mayo Foundation, completed the most important investigation ever made of the physical, mental, and other effects of semi-starvation in human beings. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? But see, this is the propaganda part that I don't like. I don't like that. Now, over here. Obviously, they briefly discuss Betty Ford Aquino, who wrote exceptional poetry. Whoops. Sorry. Hold on. Hold, please. Wrote exceptional poetry and stories before the age of 12 and graduated from university at 17. She is now a sculptress whose work was exhibited at the San Francisco World's Fair. That's all good and well. Blah, 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 blah. Now, right here. This is where he talks about his failures. The child prodigies who were exhibited around and failed later in life. There's multiple examples here. I really don't feel like reading all of them. Let me see. Hold on. Dang it. I guess I'm just going to read this first one because this first one confused me. Okay, so a more classic example was Zara Colburn of Vermont. When he was 9 years old, he was asked how many seconds had elapsed since the Christian era began. He gives some silly number. After a moment's hesitation, he shot back 30:57. I can't even read that seconds, which was correct. Okay, but obviously they trotted him around the world and he was a failure and he died. And these are all the examples that they give of these other kids who did the exact same. Right here. Yeah. Ugh. Sorry, guys. I'm having a hard time making this bigger. Whatever. I'll post this. I'll figure out a way to post it up here. Sorry. It's this thing. I'm having a hard time reading it. Regardless, the point is that they're sitting here laying out the harm of trotting these kids out. Now, obviously, Betty Ford was an exception. She's clearly an exception, right? Because she's in the papers. People know who she is. She is very much so an exception to being trotted out in the public. As far as the extent of her being exhibition, let me just get out of there because PowerPoint is giving me a really hard time. As far as the extent of her being put on display, so to speak, well, we don't necessarily know. However, I think that they were letting people know in their own way, and I'm not telling anybody that they have to agree with me, that they were doing selective breeding. That's what that sounds like to me. They already had so many failures. Because, I mean, those kids that he's talking about at that time in 1948, they were adults. They were adults, not all of them, but some of them grew up to be adults, and they were just failures according to that standard. Hello, Whack Beats. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hi, Pete Thomas. Hi, Sarah. Let me look at the chat really quick. Maybe my eyes will agree with me more. Shout out to Lady Doodah and the Intrepid Demon Hunters. Hell yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me see. And damn, at work, we got to catch the replay. Hi, Soil Lodge. No worries. And all right, I think I'm not going to pull up everything because I'll get lost in the chat. I'm talking Harvard at 16 kids. Yeah, well, I mean, it's selective breeding. Like they're selecting you for something, right? But my argument is I think that they had already implemented some sort of program like that. Because I'm going to show you guys some fascinating stuff that my LDS whistleblower had sent to me, and they, after I showed them that, and I didn't even say anything. I just said, just so you know, if you didn't know who Lewis Terman was, this was the Gifted Kids program. And they had pointed out to me that in their own research, after, I uncovered Michael Aquino having a direct tie to the Mormon church specifically, they had said to me that in their own research of Michael Aquino's first wife, Janet Forbes, that they also believe that they are looking at some sort of eugenic experiment. So I don't even know what they're looking at, but they're getting the same vibes as me. Does it necessarily mean that we're right? Not necessarily, but I am just presenting it as a theory. Hello, Nachikita. Hello, and hello, Mind Hack. So glad that you're here. Like Barbara Bush being Crowley's daughter. Was that selective breeding? Well, okay, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and please don't make fun of me because I've seen people post the pictures of them next to each other. I literally have no idea if that's true. And I know that that sounds stupid from someone who is pretty insistent that L. Ron Hubbard is the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino's father. Like, who am I to judge? You know what I'm saying? Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for being here. So I don't really know. If there's, I haven't looked into it though, to be fair. I have not looked into the whole Bush Crowley thing, but if that's true, then that's then that's crazy. That's real crazy. Wow. Well, somebody send me something that's not, you know me. I need a little bit of sources, but I mean, I'm laying out a very long game argument here. So I guess I can't really judge if I'm being honest. All right, that's fair. All right, so Barbara Bush is Crowley's granddaughter. That's wild. Let's continue. So, obviously, right here, Betty Ford. No, this drives me nuts. Hold on. There we go. So they call her Aquina, which I mean, obviously, sure, that could be a spelling error, but she made a bust of Dr. Terman. Since she has graduated from Stanford, Mrs. Aquina has studied sculpture in Germany and Austria. She has had several one-man exhibits of her work, and one of her pieces was displayed at the 1940s World Fair. She is now in Junction City, Kansas, where her husband is stationed with the armed forces. Okay, and right here it says she was one of Terman's tots, a group of 1,300 gifted children that Professor Terman tested. And it's very interesting. She is much more popular in the Utah papers than she is even in the California papers. She is highlighted quite a bit, which is a bit of a red flag to me. I'm trying to determine if it's a specific paper. I'm still working on that, but there she is. If it's specific papers, I'm sorry, that are focusing on her, because Janet Forbes, Michael Aquino's first wife, their family was involved in newspaper publishing as well. But there she is, and right here, girl 17. I mean, she was just the cat's meow, you know what I mean? She was very, very popular. Now, in regards to the Nazi rat line, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you what my LDS person showed me, and I'm also going to put it in the description of the video itself, because She talks about how she escaped from Germany, like the last train from Germany, right? Like it's always this sort of like romanticized sort of story that they give. And I'm like, okay. She was tipped off, in my opinion. It wasn't her escaping, even though she like creates this whole fantastical story. But I had posted this onto my Twitter, and my LDS whistleblower said, there is historical documentation within the LDS church about Mormon missionaries taking the last XYZ out of Germany, out of wherever, to come back to escape the war. So I'm going to show you guys what they showed me because it does match. It does match. This is a rat line. I think that straight up, this is a rat line, which is just real wild. So this is the Daily Herald up top, October 3rd, 1939. Betty Ford, 26-year-old. She arrived from Germany, where she escaped from Berlin on the last train to leave that city before the Nazi army invaded Poland. And this link right here, I will drop in the description, but chapter 40, the Saints during World War II. They boarded the last ferry, last train, last this, last that. And right here, the sculptress tells of a wild train ride. I was all alone when the train left Berlin at night, headed for Holland. The scene in the main depot of the city was one of wildest confusion. I locked myself in my stateroom, afraid of intrusions because of the violence of the crowd. I did not have to wait long. Just before the train started, there was a wild surge of people who threw themselves madly against the train. They broke every window in the train and packed into the aisles, staterooms, and on the tiny platforms. The police were powerless. Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. So we've got Michael Aquino's mother coming back, just doing the most to set the narrative, right? Because in my opinion, that's exactly what she's doing. She's laying down a really heavy narrative. The police were powerless. It's crazy. There's absolutely no collaboration. We are definitely not involved. I was definitely not tipped off, right? Okay, whatever you say. People that like to throw around the term Nazi, things like that, these are people that don't have a good grasp of history, and I'm not here to go on a rant about that. However, when you go back and look, it's literally like class war, if people want to call it that. And I'm not a communist. I'm just saying it's a bunch of elitist, rich Nazis, eugenicists, whatever you want to call it, playing, war games to crush the poor and do whatever the hell they want. But I do think that there is an argument that this is generational. You know what I mean? Now, here we go. So right here, God, I hope this thing doesn't screw up. So it's convenient that Michael Aquino and Betty Ford are both 31 years old, right? Little bit convenient. I don't know why Michael Aquino, the father, took her last name. I also think that that's a little bit weird. Now, there is the announcement of the lieutenant colonel's birth. Yeah, October 22nd, 1946. So right there. Well, the birth was on October 16th, but they put it in the paper on the 22nd. Why? I don't know. Come back up here. Now, obviously, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. However, this family, the Forbes, this is Michael Aquino's future in-laws. Future in-laws. So Mr. and Mrs. Fred Forbes have as their house guest a friend from San Francisco, Mrs. Michael Ford Aquino and son Michael. The visitors arrived in Provo 3 weeks ago and are planning to remain here for an indefinite length of time. Okay, that's super sus. And over here, this is talking about an art show. And, well, wouldn't you know it? Remember that head I showed you that she sculpted of Michael's future wife? They put it on display at the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco. And Janet Forbes, 2 years old in 1950. That's Michael's future wife. Okay, very weird. Now, right here. This is really like the only thing that I can find about the senior Michael Aquino. I don't think that I don't think that this dude's name. I don't think that this dude is necessarily real. I think he might be a spy. He might be a Nazi. I have no clue. I haven't exactly traced him back, but here he is joining this investment securities firm. And again, I think it's weird that he took her name, but I digress. And whoop, come on. Now, right here. Here is the divorce. I think it's bizarre that she uses her birth name, her first name, Marion. It says Marion Dorothy Elizabeth Ford Aquino, but she went by Betty. I think it's very bizarre that when she's getting split up, all of a sudden she's going by Marion. You know what I mean? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. Who knows? That's up for everybody else to determine. But she's sus, right? I'm going to show you guys. It's the same crappy article that I showed you last time, but just as a refresher, because you really can't see the picture, but to put it back into perspective of she's in Utah sculpting Michael's future wife's head. And again, this child seems to have a large head, or it's just a very weird angle. But that's the mom, and that's the head. Yeah? And right there, sculptress and her work. A life-size head of Janet Forbes, small daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Fred Forbes. I think that it's very weird. That's a big head, dude. That's a big head. Yeah, I'm glad that my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law didn't sculpt my head either, because I do have a big head. I just think that that's so weird. It's very weird to me. But this has been the crux of me like digging into this whole little thing that why is Michael Aquino getting married to a Mormon? Why is a satanic priestess going right into the church? Little weird. My LDS whistleblower and their people think it's super sus. They think it's super duper sus. Because for those of you that are not familiar with Bishop Glenn Pace and the Pace memo from the late 1980s, it talks about the infiltration of the upper echelon of the LDS Church involving a satanic cult that was rumored to originate in the Wasatch Front. And it would seem that the conversation that whistleblower and I had a little over a year ago, that we thought best friends process, Aquino, that we thought that that's where our research would cross paths. And it does seem to be coming full circle in just really weird ways, very bizarre ways. And I think that it's really important in the grand scheme of things. Because not only does this bring us to modern day with best friends, this would also bring us into the whole situation with the Leavitt family, right? The Leavitts in Utah and that case. Because if you've read that witness testimony, this jumps back very far, very far. So again, it's everything kind of coming full circle. Obviously, we're not going to have answers today. Now, I showed you guys a little bit of Aquino last time, but I found more. So we're going to take a quick peek. That way you guys can see. We're not going to spend too much time, but there he is. So right here is 1964. And right here is 1962. The eyebrows. I don't know what to tell anybody. I have no idea what to tell anybody. So Leash, no, he did not know Lilith as a kid. It was his first wife, Janet, and I'm going to show you guys her. Look at his brows. Look look at his brows, man. Look at them. He's going to fly away. Look at him here. Look at him here. Look at him. He's getting ready to wage mind war. He is getting ready to do the devil's work. Look at that smile on his face. I cannot take him seriously. He is getting ready to do the devil's work. But there he is, just real stoked. All about the ROTC, whatever. I have no idea what the Order of the Arrow is or the Knights of Dunamis. but apparently he was involved in those. So that's good and well, or not. Have no idea. But that's what we have for him. Now let me pull up because I want to make sure. Yeah, all right. All right, I've got the right slide, but I want to catch some of the things in the chat. LDS is a group that keeps secrets. All of them. All of these organizations keep secrets. You know what I mean? I'm not singling out the Mormons. I'm not singling out anybody. The day-to-day people that go into these institutions and do the right thing, and they're seeking community and a belief system, because I don't think that nihilism is healthy. I don't think being a fatalist is healthy. And the victims, those are the people that I care about. But again, we don't know how we get here in the now if we don't know what happened. So all of the sudden, that stuff with the Leave It family and, Bishop Pace, the Pace memo, when we see how far back this goes, that starts to make a whole lot more sense, in my opinion, because these things don't happen in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Look, those eyebrows, he was raised for his role. They're very generational. Dana, from one of my older research articles in 1916 in the Handbook of Disability Studies, Terman wrote, "It is safe to predict that in the near future, intelligence tests will bring tens of thousands of these high-grade defectives, what Goddard called morons, under the surveillance and protection of society. This will ultimately result in curtailing the reproduction of feeble-mindedness and in the elimination of an enormous amount of crime, pauperism, and industrial inefficiency." That's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you, Virginia, for bringing it full circle. Because again, this is what these people think. This is what they think of all of us. I'm included. That this isn't about a race, your ethnicity, where you were born, what you believe in. That's not what it's about. They like to tell people that that's what it's about, to create divisiveness. But that's it. That's absolutely it. Was Aquino the inspiration for Dr. Spock? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He looks like Spock, right? He was certainly born to look like, I call him Chubby Count Chocula. That's what he looks like to me. And that's what Subliminal Jihad calls him, as Chubby Count Chocula. It's always stuck in my mind. Let me see. Nathan Jared Garrett said his old process people thought it was hilarious that he became a merman when he visited BF. They mockingly laughed at him. Kelly Nora, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding that or not, but retype that. That way I can reread it, because that's very interesting. I would like to know, because I know who you're talking about, Nathan Jared Garrett. I know who you're talking about. All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek at Michael Aquino's first wife before Lillian, the Mormon gal, Mrs. Janet Forbes. So here we go. This is Janet Forbes. So she was married to Daniel Dennis Hart at 19 in 1967. And shortly thereafter, she gets married to the Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. Very interesting. Now, let's go ahead and move on. So here she is. That way you guys can see. So this technically, from what I understand from my LDS whistleblower, we are technically just looking at, from what we understand at the time right now, maybe the first satanic priestess of the LDS church. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. But that's her. Now, it's going to get weirder. So, obviously, her and Aquino split up, right? So, this is 1973. Janet Forbes recites vows with Thomas S. Bullock II. They got married in Las Vegas. I think that that's kind of fun. You know what I mean? And let's go down here. It's very interesting. So she went to Brigham Young University, obviously. She also went to the University of Kentucky in Louisville. Says that she was employed as a PR rep at the Sansom Medical Clinic in Santa Barbara and is presently executive secretary for a jewelry company in SLC. We're going to talk about her old man here shortly. But here he is. That is Mr. Thomas Bullock. He's got great hair. All these guys have amazing hair besides Michael Aquino. Besides Michael Aquino, they have amazing hair. What is in the water? And can I have some? Now, so this is more about her. She passed away pretty young. She was 41 years old. She died in 1989 of cancer. From what it appears, what I could find is that Thomas divorced her or filed for divorce 2 months before her death. So I do think that that is kind of interesting. It seems that his family in particular goes way, 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 way back. Now, this is all I have right now about her dad and her mother. Okay. Big in publishing, though. Big guy in publishing. He was circulation manager for the San Francisco Chronicle and circulation manager of the Chronicle's Oakland area. He also worked as an advertising salesman on a paper in Riverside, California, which his father owned. He was a recognized poet in Utah, being a member of the Utah State Poetry Society and a published author in the 1964 edition of Utah Sings. And he was a part of the Daily Herald and I believe another paper. But they got married in Berkeley, right? Him and Nina, his old lady. Obviously, Berkeley is extremely sus around this time. Very, very, very sus. So I also think that there's something weird there. I do have a lot more digging to do on that, but at least I can show you guys. Because again, I think that these things are set up in particular. Now, this, okay, so let's talk about Aquino really quick, right? Because if you're here, I assume that you have like some knowledge of the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. He served in Vietnam. He was part of the Phoenix program. He was part of Operation Wandering Soul. He is the author of Mind War, okay? Psychological warfare. People get really weird about Aquino and like what General Flynn and this whole like QAnon crap. Not here for it. Don't care. Don't care. And I get that it might seem audacious coming from me, who is of the full belief, again, that L. Ron Hubbard is Michael Aquino's father. But I'm just saying. I don't care about Q. Don't care about QAnon. It's all garbage. But the fact is that Michael Aquino was absolutely the inventor of mind war. Keep in mind, L. Ron Hubbard, Dianetics, science of the mind, right? Now, I'm going to show you guys her second husband, because her second husband, this guy that she ends up marrying, Bullock, he was also in Vietnam. He was literally in the same place in Vietnam as Michael Aquino. So, one could posit that maybe that was planned. Don't know. Can't necessarily prove it. You know what I mean? However, Provoen heads customs operations at U.S. Air Force Base in Vietnam. So there he is, Thomas Bullock II. And this sentence right here, the Provo native has been responsible for showing his men every known trick used to smuggle drugs, illegal currency, and ordnance out of the Republic of Vietnam. He trains them well. Look at that. That's all I need to know, quite frankly. You know what I mean? And his father, this is senior Thomas Bullock. So he was actually, let me see if this is going to screw up. There we go. So he was actually in the U.S. Army prior to World War II. He was a POW for 3 years, which is pretty crazy to me. He participated in the Death March at Bataan and was kept in a Philippine prisoner of war camp and was later transferred with other prisoners to the Hoten camp in Mukden, Manchuria. It's pretty wild. He was an elder in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, I don't think that Janet necessarily, coincidentally, is just that unfortunate. Because I would say that, like, that's unfortunate. Because obviously it didn't work out, right, with either of her husbands. And I'm not like here judging the woman in particular. Don't know enough yet. You know what I mean? But I will judge Michael Aquino. I know that he's a satanic Nazi pedophile. Yeah? Right. So the stuff with Bullock and that whole sentence literally of just he's training them to literally smuggle out everything out of Vietnam, he trains them well. They're proud of it. I think that he's most likely a dangerous man. And that side of the family in particular, again, that looks like a very long lineage within the Mormon hierarchy, the Mormon history, but I can only do so much at a time. And also, I want to see what my LDS whistleblower comes up with, because they have so much knowledge and they have so many people working on their side. I just was literally digging. A couple people dropped these photos on Twitter, and I was like, well, they're getting divorced and remarried really fast. That doesn't really make sense to me. So I didn't buy it at first. But then I went back and I went into Ancestry and I matched all the records, and I'm like, well, dang, that's crazy to me. Now, in regards to her actually being a satanic priestess, because I think that I showed this last time, but I need to show it again because Michael says it himself. I think I did show it last time, but whatever. We're going to look at it again because she was a priestess. So when was that dropped? I don't think that it was dropped before she went back into the church. So right here. There we go. Not going to read this whole thing again, but 1972. In regards to the Satan spectrum, talking about his wife and he. In addition to being a satanic priestess, Janet holds a bachelor's degree as a registered nurse. There you go. And look, oh, he's in Louisville, Kentucky as well. Okay. Was it Kansas? It was Junction City, Kansas that his mother was stationed with apparently his father, right? So not Kentucky. Whatever. But that's that. Now let me look at the chat. Let me see. He doesn't call it the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Who doesn't call it the Process Church of the Final Judgment? Michael Aquino claims he has a swastika in his hair. In his hair? That's crazy. You mean like shaped into his hair? The army got mad because a soldier mailed a mortar shell from Vietnam. It blew up a post office. Folks get big mad at that. Wow. I didn't know that. That's crazy, ivermectin. And that's also terrible. That's absolutely terrible. I think his proclivities don't lead towards women his age. Don't mess with the post office. All right. And I will, Virginia, that's long. I don't want to throw off what I'm doing right now. I will come back to that. I promise that I'm not ignoring you. Because actually, I am going to be showing something from the McClary's blog. I'm not going to really read it. I am going to drop it in the chat, and I'm also going to drop it in the description. And here's why. Because, I mean, whatever, okay? Like, trolls are going to troll. Yeah, that's fine. Don't care. But somebody had left a comment on one of the SPTV people, whatever, that I come on here and I just ramble about L. Ron Hubbard being an intelligence asset. And it's, I'm living in a fantasy land, right? This is what all these people tell me. And I just would continue to ask why people are upset about my research if I'm living in a fantasy land, right? However, Virginia opened up a very simple blog that shows about L. Ron Hubbard being intelligence. Because for those of us that aren't, with blinders on like this, we understand that his movement, as Mr. William Ramsey stated so eloquently, has all the hallmarks of an intelligence asset. So it is very weird that the ex-Scientology community denies these things, but I have stated to you guys multiple times my opinion as to why. And why? Because those things would actually take down the church, because that would actually blow the church's cover. Now, let me see how long I've been going. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here soon. I didn't want to go like too deep because I haven't gone super deep on the wife. I just haven't. But I have pissed off the Satanic Temple, which is fine. It's great. I love it. I'm here to piss off the Satan simps, right? Because Leash had sent me, and I told you guys, it was the old radio show where they were referencing Mae Brussel, right? And they're talking about the ultimate evil. And they're so eloquent with their observations about these cults being intelligence assets, right? Being these intelligence operations. And that the satanic part is basically just woo woo, right? It's woo woo. It is woo woo. It's woo woo. I don't know what to tell people. People have been talking about this for so long. Virginia's not the first. I'm not the first. If people actually wanted to take down the Church of Scientology, and they could, or if the Temple of Satan would acknowledge this stuff about Michael Aquino without whataboutism, you know, which I don't think that they're capable of, because I actually asked a ordained minister of the temple yesterday to make a statement, and they refused, right? They refused. They have not replied. But Sunday, when I'm on the Imagination podcast, I do directly challenge Mr. Lucian Graves. Yeah? Mr. Pro of the false memory syndrome. That's what he's trained in. Yeah. Because no matter what, for some reason, and I'm just kind of like rambling right now until whatever, I pull this back up. For some reason, and I think we all know what reason it is, they like to ignore, kind of like how the ex-Scientology community likes to ignore that L. Ron Hubbard is a documented intelligence asset. Imagine that. They like to ignore the court record of the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino and the fact that these things were not removed from his Army record. And they weren't. They weren't. So this argument that is now being made in a different way from the Temple of Satan folks, well, he wasn't charged. And I ask, hey, Ghislaine Maxwell was charged with trafficking kids to nobody. So do we really think that the legal system is out here advocating for justice and equality and truth? If we're being intellectually honest, the answer is no. But this is when people engage in whataboutism. Because the magic, the woo-woo part, I get that some people believe in it, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell people what to believe. But at the end of the day, the reality is that all of these little woo-woo fronts, whatever you want to call it, New Age, Satanic, Temple of Set, Setian, what was the other one? Like Temple of Anubis, that guy Ronald Barrett ended up opening after he took over like the Temple of Set at some point for some short period of time. The process, the 4P, 4 pi, whatever it is, it's a front. People do use these things to harm others in very serious ways, just like the Vatican does. The Church of Latter-day Saints does. Southern Baptist. Presbyterian. What's the one where they like get real wild? I'm trying to think, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I have family members that are that they align with that belief system, which is fine. Hey, like, you're not hurting anybody. I have no problem with it. That's my take. If you're not hurting anybody, that's fine. My issue is that all these organizations need to legitimately lose their tax status. And it's not for the money part. It's so that they can actually be investigated for the crimes that they are engaging in cahoots with each other behind the scenes. Pentecostal, thank you. Charismatic Pentecostal, yes. Like the, and also like the health and wealth sort of gospel, that, not into that. Not into that. But I believe that that's a supernatural act that has nothing to do with me. But the idea that like the Vatican and the LDS and Scientology and all of these other organizations that are seemingly unrelated, that they're not working together behind the scenes, that's naive at best. And it is. Because in the schizo clip, that's why I included Adnan Khashoggi and his wife, because Adnan Khashoggi's wife was a Scientologist. That's why I put the Aquinos in there, because the Aquinos are implicated in Iran-Contra as well as the Franklin scandal. I included John Travolta because John Travolta is a Scientologist. John Travolta was also in the film Devil's Reign that Anton LaVey consulted on, and the woman that was raped on film by Roy Radin, she was on Welcome Back Kotter with John Travolta, right? So, and like people think that all these things are unrelated, but then we have Roy Cohn and Studio 54, and they're trafficking a ton of cocaine in and out of there, and very likely people, right? Because I found this really fascinating old interview, and I'm not going to pull it up now, but it's with James Jimmy Boots Rothstein. And it's a very old written interview in particular, and it talks about his discussion with Roy Cohn about trafficking kids and trafficking drugs. So these things are real, and these things do happen, and they are happening. I'm not here to say that like I'm solving the Son of Sam. I am here to tell people though that like my supernoided conspiracy about all of the cults being an intelligence operation, and that the Son of Sam in particular is the pregame to the satanic panic in the public eye to distract people from Iran Contra, which was actually going on way before we were told it was going on. I think that that theory, that noided conspiracy theory that I've been called an idiot, a fool, all kinds of names, I think that it is bearing a lot of fruit. You know what I mean? Now, I want to show you guys the one article that really made the Satanists mad. And I'm just like, bro, I didn't even pull up the one about him talking about the warm blood sacrifices, because that's what I'm going to be asking Mr. Greaves. I'm going to be asking Mr. Greaves about the warm blood sacrifices, because we need some clarification. Yeah, especially with these after school programs, we would like to know. However, this is the one that made him really, really mad, because the UK goes hard. You know what I mean? The UK, at least back in the day, I mean, the UK went really hard. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of that. However, so this says right here, only this week a storm erupted when it became known that self-confessed devil worshipper Michael Aquino had been secretly flown into this country. Aquino, a 42-year-old U.S. Army lieutenant colonel under investigation for allegedly having sex with a 2-year-old girl, was here to film a satanic initiation ceremony for a TV program on the devil child sex connection. And obviously, he put some hairspray or maybe some glue, some Elmer's, into his brows. But there he is. Pedophiles use the occult as a front. Well, I would say that the cartels use the occult as a front, quite frankly. I think that it's the cartels, because I do think that these are like straight up like drug, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, all of that. It's all just cartels. And I get that that might sound like really crazy to people, and that's fine. I'm used to being called crazy. It doesn't really bother me anymore. The words kind of lose their meaning, especially when I'm not here necessarily telling you what to think. Now, I want to show you guys really quick. So we talked about the Lilith Grotto last time, right? And the meeting in Staten Island, whatever. But because it is a nonprofit, I wanted to have a look. And it is still listed as active. And guess what? They've never paid anything. They've never filed their taxes. They've never filed anything. That's ridiculous. That is freaking ridiculous that they have never filed anything. There is nothing on record from the Lilith Grotto. But let's go ahead and take a peek. Okay, so right here, Lilith Grotto Church Inc. of the Church of Satan. Look at that. They don't even have a mission. I would imagine it would be, doing the devil's work. You know what I mean? But that's ridiculous. And there she is. Obviously, yes, she's a very attractive woman. That's fine. We're being unfairly discriminated against. I hate this. Somebody had pointed out on Twitter, it literally looks like that pentagram is duct taped to that cloth. It's completely ridiculous. Don't judge us. Whatever. And there she is, much younger. Someone else had sent that to me, and then I also found it in the back of the history of the Church of Satan that Michael Aquino authored. And there she is, trying to look extra spoopy. Yeah. And let me see the next slide, because there's some of these. Hold on. I don't want to skip over. I took out anything, because there's nudity in the back of that book for anybody that didn't know. Yeah, she's got nice stems. She was a very attractive woman. Michael Aquino clearly had the gift of gab for the ladies. You know what I mean? But she's wicked. In my opinion, she's wicked. So, it is what it is. But in the back of the book that Michael Aquino wrote, there are nude photos, including Susan Atkins, right? From the family, from Charles Manson's family. Is it Susan Atkins? I think that's her name. I think that's her real name. Yeah, she's naked in the back of the book because she worked for Anton LaVey before she joined the family. Imagine that. But there's also a naked photo of Anton LaVey, and it's really disgusting. And I'm just like, ugh. But the PDF is locked, so you can't actually take the page out, because otherwise I would. However, okay, so over here, obviously, I had to grab from, this is ProPublica, so this is my favorite website for nonprofit investigation. They've literally filed nothing since their inception. Imagine that. And there she is, doing a ritual, whatever. And there they are, partying it up. What an eclectic looking crowd, yeah? What an eclectic looking crowd. Just having a good old time. All ages. So Michael Aquino was the then editor of the Church of Satan journal, The Cloven Hoof, and that was at an Acker Mansion function. I don't know what Acker Mansion function means. With Ray Harryhausen, George Powell, and FJA's assistant Dennis Billows. Who knows? It says the photo's circa 1970. I don't believe that whatsoever, because the timeline really doesn't make sense to me as far as that goes. And let me see. All right, these next couple of slides are photo appropriate. All right. So here you're going to see maybe some photos of the late Lieutenant Colonel and Lilith that maybe you haven't seen before. And Ivor, I will find the book and I will send it to you on Twitter. I know that it's not for research, you know what I mean? Wink, wink. But anyways, you have a strange taste in women, but I'm not going to judge you for it. However, all right, so here is Michael Aquino and Forrest J. Ackerman, Warlock Tom Barry, and Priest Tom Huddleston. There is Michael Aquino and Priestess Margaret Wendell. Yep. I've got a bad feeling about this fella, Stephen Foster. Got a bad feeling about him. They look a little lit at this Ugoth Grotto in LA in 1974. Little lit. Especially Lilith on the floor. I think she might be a little stoned. And over here, Satanist William Andrews, Warlock Ronald Barrett, and Priestess Lilith Sinclair at the Magician in New York City. So there's that. And I think the next slide is not as edited. She looks a little lit here too, huh? They're having a great time. Somebody's trying to throw up the devil horns. Obviously got cut off. So Michael Grumbowski and Lilith Sinclair. And here is Linda Thomas and L. Dale Seago. And there is Stuart Monroe, William Murray, and Joan Keller. These photos are crappy quality, I know, but this is what's in the book. Tom Knapp, William Murray, Margaret Wendell at the Karnak Grotto in Santa Cruz, California. So there's that. It is what it is. It might not be that exciting, but some of those photos I had never seen of either of them, so I found it really interesting, and obviously, I'm, like, cross-referencing these names to see if they come up in anything else because, well, I just have a feeling that I will. Oh, I gotta show you guys one more thing because Lilith okay, so, if you're on my Twitter, you've already seen this. However, Lilith had the audacity to try and say that she got fired from a job because she was a witch. It was actually because she was a word that rhymes with witch. And I found this very hilarious. So I need to show you guys for my peeps that are not on Twitter. So, right here. Woman being rude, not a witch, got her fired. Mrs. Sinclair, 34, brought the suit against Mission Federal Savings and Loan, charging she was harassed by other employees and fired after they learned from a magazine article that she was a priestess in the Church of Satan. She charged that she had been discriminated against on religious grounds. Ha! And then she took it to the Court of Appeals. It's freaking ridiculous. It is unsatisfactory job performance. A 2-week trial. 2 weeks. They took up the public's money for 2 weeks, and the jury had to sit there and listen to her. Oh, the poor Satanist. Woo, woo, woo. Woo, 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 woo. Poor me. I'm being discriminated against. It's my rights. It's my religious rights. Shut up. God, I cannot stand these people. They are freaking ridiculous. I'm trying to make sure that I don't have anything else to show you guys in particular. I'm sure I'm going to forget something. Who knows? I was having weird issues with my internet. So, let me drop in before I do forget the McClary's blog. Yeah. About stop hiring crazy people. Yeah, well, stop hiring Satanists. You know what I mean? And Satanists can mean anything. However, there is the documented proof, and she keeps it very simple. Very simple about L. Ron Hubbard being an intelligence asset. Because again, if people are being honest in the grand scheme of things, if that whole cover was blown, could probably take the church down. But for the parties that have large platforms and TV shows and get awards on TV who deny these things when they know better, yeah, well, I would say that their motives are not genuine. You know what I mean? Hugh Hefner had a grotto. Yes, he did. Stop. Okay, let me see. I sometimes bought as a child Famous Monsters of Mr. Forrest James Ackerman. George Powell was a filmmaker. Ray Harryhausen was a great special effects artist in the cinema. I didn't know that, guys. Thank you so much for telling me. I had no idea. That's awesome. See, I knew that other people, like, I knew that Forrest Ackerman, that name stood out to me. And I didn't know if it was just, because it's a unique name. But I said, I know I need to come back to these people. And that's why I put them into my PowerPoint specifically, because I know that I need to cross reference and see. Because the interview with James Jimmy Boots Rothstein, he mentions a very interesting lobbyist and attorney who took on. He represented the Church of Scientology, he represented the Moonies, he represented all kinds of people. And he seems to be a really fascinating tie to the Franklin scandal and the Callboy scandal with the late Craig Spence. Because I'm digging into Craig Spence here, like independently on my own. Yes, I've read the Franklin scandal, but I'm coming into this from my angle, which is investigating the cults as intelligence operations. And so therefore in the timeline, I'm looking at Iran-Contra. Because Iran-Contra started way before they said anything. And Oliver North ain't no hero. Okay? A lot of heads literally went on the chopping block for him and because of him. He ain't a hero. Just like Frank Church of the Church Committee isn't a hero. Okay? So I just want to make my opinion and stance on that very clear. Very clear. Hello, imagination. I cannot wait for our show to come out on Sunday. I don't understand how you're like, I believe in the devil, but I'm not evil. WTF. L. Ron Hubbard's dentist is the real villain in all of this. I mean, I'm scared of the dentist, so I don't disagree. I mean, I've talked about it before earlier on in my research, but do I necessarily think that like that story was a lie? The dentist is really traumatic. So it probably was traumatic. However, everything else is like it's a shore story. It's complete nonsense. Let me see. Hubbard had a dentist. Does it rain? That's hilarious. Yeah, I know. It's like his teeth like kept growing as he got older and then they just got too big to be in his mouth. You know what I mean? Ray Harryhausen was awesome. I'm going to have to look up some of the you know, some of these movies and these names that you guys are talking about cuz I have no idea. Let me see. Coming in late, but a bathtub death. Yes, the bathtub death, the bathtub suicide. Yeah, dentists are absolutely terrifying. Conspiracy of Silence. Dr. Kerbo's feel good fun time medical show. Okay, that's what's up, Lazarus. I like that new username. It's almost like all these groups are connected and used as CIA honeypots. My first dentist was a former Wehrmacht dentist. Okay, ivermectin. Well, all right, I'll be quick with sending you the temple or the Church of Satan with the naked Susan Atkins, whatever. I'll send it to you as soon as I'm done. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have left over. I know I was all over the place, whatever. Obviously, we have a lot more to talk about. I am going to try not to bounce around too much. Virginia's done some amazing work about Marjorie Cameron because this is kind of coming back to my original thesis about, Michael Aquino being the homunculus moonchild. And Virginia's documented that, like, Marjorie Cameron, old baby was a honeypot. She was a honeypot. And she has a very interesting sort of parallel, but in a different way, to Michael Aquino's mother, as far as being involved in like some sort of weird program early on. Because I'm of the opinion that Hubbard and Marjorie Cameron were basically like running an op on Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons was the mark. Jack Parsons was the mark. Because I believe, Parsons was an occultist. I don't think that any of the other woo woo stuff, no. It's a shore story, it's a front. That's all it is, in my opinion. Wehrmacht, German World War II Army. Yeah, the fact that you told, I know what the Wehrmacht is, but yeah, that's, I wouldn't go back to the dentist either. I don't blame you. You just getting started. I'm in for the whole ride. Hell yeah, Carl Hassel. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I know I like ramble sometimes. There's just like so much to go through. There's so much. And I wish I could have all of my PowerPoints up and we could just like jump from PowerPoint to PowerPoint, and that I had like a massive computer where I could just like, pew, 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 and we could like get through everything and it would last forever because I would just sit here for hours and just bounce around. But I'm trying to keep it semi-topical. That way, at least we're establishing this new angle in regards to Utah, best friends, right? The LDS, some maybe new information that people did not know about the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. And then coming back in and looking at everything else with Iran Contra. Because again, I'm of the firm opinion that the stuff with Roy Cohn, Studio 54, the drug trafficking, the stuff with the Church of Scientology at that time, the process at that time, the crimes that were later attributed solely to David Berkowitz. I think that it was the strategy of tension. A tale is told as old as time, the strategy of tension. This is why it's good to have a sort of historical understanding of things, especially in the area of psychological warfare, one might say. Because the Son of Sam was like the strategy of tension, just like Manson, just like all of it. It was scaring the crap out of the public so that people would beg for justice and law and order to be restored, right? Right. But also to gaslight people when things were really actually happening. because they were happening. Because the whole like satanic panic that the Satanists love to deny, like Lucien Greaves, who specializes in false memory syndrome. And I will end here, I suppose. They never want to talk about Michael Aquino. Ever. Ever. They never want to talk about it. Just like certain people within the Son of Sam research community, there's certain topics that they don't want to talk about. Right? Just like in the ex-Scientology community, there are certain topics that they don't want to talk about. Right? Yeah. Are we seeing a consistent trend where if we're here to advocate for the truth and we're in search of the truth, and I think I've made it very clear that I am, then nothing's off the table. We consider everything. Told you guys I have my biases, and that's fine. It's good and well. And I understand, like, the Barbara Bush Crowley thing, like, who am I to judge when I think that Hubbard is Aquino's father? I understand that. I'm not allowed to make demands of anybody, nor would I try to. But I'm just saying, no topic is off the table. Because it's just not a coincidence in the grand scheme of things that this is all happening. And now, today, in the year 2024, we have Mr. Lucien Greaves, Doug Messner, and the Temple of Satan, the Satanic Temple, whatever. The priest or ordained minister tried to correct me on that, but won't respond about Michael Aquino. And I'm like, okay. Tell me that you power bottom for Satan without telling me. Yeah. But we have someone heading a temple, satanic temple, who specializes in false memory syndrome. It was never a syndrome, not in the diagnostic manual. It's not science. Who thinks that they're like playing 4D chess out here, doing this Q crap of like, I'm on both the side of dark and light. Okay. All right, because human behavior and human nature has definitely changed this time, right? If that's the case, then you guys should have no problem addressing the charges against the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. But that will come on Sunday on the Imagination podcast. I am going to get out of here because power button for Satan. I'm sorry. I just, Tell me that you do without telling me. You're a power bottom for Satan, in my opinion. Sorry, it is what it is. You don't like it? Then talk about Aquino. Own it. Own it. Own it. Because let's not forget, Aquino himself said that the Temple of Set was a more evolved version of the Church of Satan. It was a level of higher thinking of Satanism. And then we have Lucien Greaves in Sympathy for the Devil saying pretty much the exact same thing about the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Oh, I forgot to mention he's also a Processian. I forgot to mention that. He's a Processian. But he discusses how the process, once he got past the conspiracy theories and realized that it was all just satanic panic, that it was a higher level of theological study. The unification, what was it, the unification of opposites or the reconciliation of opposites? Because he's good with his words. He's good with his words, right? Very slick. That is by design. That is not by accident. But now we have him as a Processian who specializes in false memory syndrome, who is also heading the Satanic Temple. This is why these things have to be talked about, because these problems are literally never going to be solved. They are never going to be solved. That's all I'm saying. So we have a long way to go. Long way to go. But for those that are in it for the long haul, we'll figure it out eventually. You know what I mean? So I hope you guys have a good weekend. I may come on before the weekend ends. I don't know. I have to work tomorrow, but I will talk to you guys very soon. And Ivor, I will send you the book so that you can check out, so that you can check her out in the Witch's Coffee House, whatever. It's warning, full bush, bro. Full bush. But, you have special taste in ladies. So